With us now, senior advisor for the White House on the issue of migration. This is her first interview on MSNBC in this role, Amy Pope. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us. I greatly appreciate your time. So as we mentioned, 4 families being reunited. What's the process been like trying to find these parents and matching them with their children?
Look, there's been a lot of hard work that's gone into this. It's not just one agency within the United States government. There are several agencies that are involved. There are nonprofit organizations. There are several governments from different countries involved. So it's really complicated, but we're really thrilled to see these 4 families be reunited. And this is just the beginning of the work that has been going on for some time.
To the point that my colleague Shannon Pettypiece made, the immigrant advocacy organization El Otro Lado is accusing the Biden administration of taking too much credit for the reunification, saying in a statement, quote, DHS has done nothing to facilitate the return and reunification of these parents this week other than to agree to allow them in. The only reason these mothers will be standing at the port of entry is because El Otro Lado negotiated their travel visas with the Mexican government, paid for their airline tickets, and arranged for reunification. I want to give you a chance to respond to that statement. How much is DHS relying on groups like these to help the reunification process?
There's no question that the nonprofit organizations are playing a very important role here. They're really critical to the success of the whole endeavor. But ultimately, you need the federal government involved. You need the Department of Homeland Security to facilitate the parole of families back into the country, basically to allow them back in, to make sure that we are making the appropriate match between children and their parents, to make sure that governments agree. There are a whole host of tasks that have to be accomplished here, and it requires a partnership between the nonprofit sector and the federal government, and I'm pleased to say that that's happening.
Can you give us an overview out of the 1,000 families or so? We've just mentioned 4. How many more are about to be reunited? Where are they in the process? Do you have a number on how things are looking?
I don't have a number. What I can tell you is that by June 2nd, you'll see a comprehensive report on what's been happening here. And we expect that number to go up. I mean, again, this is an important partnership with the nonprofit community. There have been people who've been tracking this for some time. And the Biden administration is committed to making sure that we reunite children with their parents from whom they'd been cruelly separated during the last administration.
Let's widen out for a moment. Customs and Border Protection reports that it encountered more than 172,000 people trying to get in to the U.S. at the southern border in March. That's a 71% increase over the previous month of February. Democratic Senator Mazie Hirono had this to say on Friday. She basically said that the Vice President, Kamala Harris, should go down and needs to go down to the border. Why hasn't she yet?
The vice president has really been focused on the root causes. I think we can all agree that what we've seen at the U.S. border is just a symptom of what's been happening within the region itself. And the vice president and the president recognize that unless we address the acute causes as well as the root causes of this migration, nothing will change at our border. So the vice president has been absolutely committed to that. She's met with the president of Guatemala and the president of Mexico. She has an ambitious agenda set out for the departments and agencies. She's ensuring that they are accountable, that we're moving forward quickly, and really getting to the heart of the reason why people are migrating in the first place. And that's where I think she can be the most effective.
As you probably know, the latest data shows about 790 children in Border Patrol custody and more than 22,000 in care of the Health and Human Services Department. The numbers are going way down, to the administration's credit. So how is the current flow of minors being handled by authorities?
I'm really pleased to say that there's tremendous cooperation happening right now between the Departments of Health and Human Services and the Department of Homeland Security. We've created a whole of government, very comprehensive approach that the minute the child comes into the Customs and Border Protection facility, they're identified, they are appropriately slated to go into either one of our emergency shelters or into a licensed bed, and then ultimately to be reunited with their family or their sponsors. And it's taken some time to get these processes down. As you know, we came into this administration without enough beds, without enough infrastructure. We're really starting way, way behind the 8 ball. And it's taken tremendous effort to get to a place where we can now move children through the process appropriately. And that's great news.
There were unfortunately 4 people killed and 25 that were injured yesterday after a boat that was used in a suspected human smuggling operation capsized off the coast of San Diego. It's raising a lot of questions about human smuggling. Can you talk to us about what the Biden administration is doing about the issue and the dangers of human smuggling in particular?
This is one of the reasons why the vice president's engagement is so important. We know that people who are desperate to come to the United States, desperate to flee their homes, are going to come whatever way is available to them. So in the first instance, our job is to make sure that there are legal pathways, to make sure that there are appropriate channels for people who are fleeing violence or persecution to find a way into a legal channel, either to the United States or other countries as appropriate, but also to take action against the smugglers themselves. And there's really good work happening now between the United States, between the governments of Mexico and Central America, to really focus on the smugglers, to share information on the traffickers, to make sure that we're bringing a comprehensive approach against those who are trying to exploit the desperation of the people who are trying to flee their circumstances.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.